Why, hello and welcome. My name is Maria Wolbert, and I am currently taking a Career Development Facilitator course. And I find this is an incredible course which has helped me to develop my CDF knowledge, and it's helped me to create portfolios, network, and to obtain and to create a bevy of resources. One of the things I did in order to really understand what a career development facilitator does is I actually opened somewhat of my own business. So I have a pro bono client I'll call Dan. For example, Dan is 28 years old and he decided to seek out a career development facilitator since he's having trouble moving on with what he truly wants to do in his life and the type of career he wants. So the facilitation process that Dan and I followed, where we had individual meetings, wherein I asked open-ended questions. He did a lot of soul searching, and I continued to question in an open-ended manner. And I listened a lot, got to know him, and then started to bring him back to some of his goals and barriers as I plotted it out while he was talking and restated them for him and made sure he agreed. And then we were able to get to two primary goals. And those two goals, we then went on to determine what resources were needed not only from me, but externally in order for him to achieve those goals. So let's find out, is Dan making progress to overcome his barriers? So this was his road to happiness. Dan, in fact, shared with me he is going to a psychologist, which is wonderful, since that is not something that I, as a career development facilitator, could handle. He did come to me to help with the career end of it because he desires to make significant career changes, purchase a home, and become independent. Now, these are some of the questions that I asked Dan. Where did he want to go with his life? What barriers were stopping him? What were some primary or long-term objectives? And then short-term, what were the baby steps that needed to happen for those long-term objectives or goals to be achieved? And what resources and assistance would he need? And then stop, put on the brakes. He all of a sudden had new developments, and we needed to re-examine his goals and his options and determine if his goals were still the same. So with the goal planning, Dan determined that basically he really wanted to go for a different type of career within the IT industry. Additionally, he wanted to relocate and purchase a home. In order to do this, Dan needed to start with, okay, let's really do some research and find out in the IT industry for what he wanted to do, what is considered to be the most acceptable style and method of writing a resume, and also to compose a very eloquent cover letter that would sell his skills, and then continue on with getting a listing of references and permission therein, and each of these being with the same letterhead, and even so much as possibly considering a business card. Now, in addition to creating these standard documents, Dan and I really went over job search methodology. Dan had it made. I mean, truly, he had so many people from his current workplace that just absolutely loved his work, as well as clients of them from different companies. So he had quite a network already in place. Plus, he even had recruiters trying to get to him. And he already had started his LinkedIn profile. He knew about Glassdoor. He knew about a number of the job sites that are out there wherein you can find a job. But he needed to stay true to who he was and make sure that he wasn't getting pressured to go in a direction that he did not desire to. In regards to the interviewing strategies, Dan had not interviewed in 12 years, so he really didn't know what the STAR interview, otherwise known as behavioral interviewing, was. And so he had to learn a new method of interviewing as opposed to simply asking and answering very simple questions, which was what he was used to in the past. Finally, the negotiation skills. Definitely Dan had to start to understand how crucial benefits were, what cost of living allowance really means, and how it could affect how well off you are when you're purchasing that home, or what your life will really be like. So therefore, we covered all of these aspects as he continued on in his goal to independence. A big portion of the portfolio was also the informational interviews and really learning what a CDF does through networking. Marcy Goodwin was kind enough to help me to gain information, build a network, and I really, really wanted to stand out, especially with Deb Cash, because I am thinking of possibly applying at Oakland University. Well, Marcy started me off, since she's my tech partner for this course, at the Macomb St. Clair, Michigan Works. Marcy herself is a career development facilitator, and she also hooked me up with Wesley Norden and Sean Decker, who work within the prison system. They are community resource specialists, and they work with the Offender Success Program. Also, Kathy Sanchez is a manager in CDF for the Waterford, Michigan Works, and I interviewed her. And finally, Deb Cash was kind enough to give me an interview. She is the Assistant Director of Advising at Oakland University. What did I get from them? Well, from Marcy and from Kathy, who worked at Michigan Works, they had the same primary clientele, the public at large. Anybody. It could be a veteran, it could be a displaced worker, it could be a youth who was in trouble with the law, it could be somebody who just is looking for a career change after a number of years. Then, as you go on, we found that their most used services were identical as well. People really went in there initially, it seemed, for unemployment compensation enrollment, but then really noticed the resources, the labs, the workshops, the recertifications, the job trainings, and so they really found how helpful a Michigan Works could be. Now, in Marcy's case, their future changes with their large center is they were revamping workshops. They had a plethora of them, and they're starting to condense. In Kathy's case, she's a manager, and she handled all the finances, so she was really hung up on the fact that they were really facing some tough times in the future for her Michigan Works Center due to legislature financial cutbacks. Now, Wesley Norden and Sean Decker, they work with the prison system, so therefore their primary clientele were prisoners who were just newly released. What did they help them with? Well, prisoners needed housing. They needed transportation, so they'd give them free bus passes. They needed job training or recertification, so they would find funding or certification programs or internships, and they would help them to network and just give them support to find a job. And what's awesome is in Michigan, they started to do a pilot program, such as at Jackson Prison, where the STEM program would go into the prisons and allow prisoners to become certified before they were released. Finally, Deb Cash with Oakland University, her primary clientele were university students, and she did deal many times with first-year students with choosing what did they want their major minor to be, which they'd like that to be chosen by April of their first year, and also with course selections and counseling them in general. It's very hard to start college and making sure you're going to stick with it. And Oakland University is a very prominent university and has had quite an increase in enrollment, so therefore caseloads are increasing for her workers. Some of the notable quotes and some of the words of advice from these career development facilitators and that I received from the informational interviews were wonderful. Marcy, she really is on a client side, and she said some of the things that help the most is when she says to a client, "I'm on your side." And it just helps to reassure them, to relax them, to let them know she's working for them. If somebody is feeling silly or that they don't know enough, maybe they're not good on a computer, she'll say, "Hey, you're just job security for me." And it helps just to break the ice and to let them know they don't need to know everything. That's what she's there for. Wesley and Sean said that many of the prisoners come out and they don't trust. And so they tried to build trust with clients by saying, "I want to see you succeed." But they also indicated that though there are many hardcore prisoners coming out, you really have to have passion and compassion, but you have to make sure you have that gray area because sometimes they go back into the system. And so it requires some tough skin. Kathy, being a manager and CDF and of course counselor, gave great advice that I kept hearing over and over from different people I interviewed. Give clients time to speak, listen, and be patient. And I loved when she said we have to believe in our clients and their abilities. Now, Deb Cash with the university, she did a fantastic job of modeling how you can connect and understand an individual. And that's exactly what she did with me when I did my informational interview with her. And she told me that the best way to gain experience for Oakland University, which is one of my potential targets for a future hire, is to volunteer at their career center. Very useful information. What other resources and researches do we need? Okay, so we have this portfolio, but the portfolio is not complete. All this experience is not complete without research and resources. So I built a career development library of web-based bookmarks and handouts and resources. Also did take multiple assessments and really looked at which ones should be used and how they could be used appropriately. Also, I really explored the ONET Academy. It has such a bevy of information, and it's a portal, a job portal. And finally, if you really would like to keep up on your game as a career development facilitator, the TED Talks and all the YouTube videos of CDF theorists are just wonderful resources. You don't need to always go out and buy a textbook. It's right there online. So, going back to the first point of the resources, is having your CDF quote-unquote Bible, your library of web-based bookmarks and links and referral system. Half of our strength is our knowledge on how to help people through referrals or getting them to the right place, into the right person or the right specialist. So there's agency specialist referrals and listings. Those could be anyone under the sun. It could be everything from a church to a United Way to a psychologist, and that's just to name a few. Government agencies, we look at how many people are in need. It could be a disabled worker, somebody who was in the military. It could be a vet. It could be somebody who retired. And of course, let's not forget about the unemployed. With education, we not just have college, but we also have certifications and youth programs, and there's so much funding available. And the very powerful internships, and of course the shadows. Assessments can be very powerful for those who have absolutely no clue where their strengths or skills or personality sets might match to a career. And the printed material, I found especially the Macomb St. Clair works had a plethora of services, resources, workshops, help centers, all right there, and so many flyers and to help with the job search and links and just everything outlined for everybody of where to go for the agencies, the governments, the education, the assessments, everything. So let's go to the second point. Assessments and what do they measure? So if you're going to be working with a client and you'd like to help them to, let's say, really understand careers from a holistic viewpoint of with what skills do they have? What's your personality like? What do you value? Where are your interests? And how can all this tie into a career? Well, you probably would want to go more toward the Holland or RASIC and the ONET interest profilers because those test all 5 of those and they showcase the careers. Now notice all 4 of these listed do in fact come up with careers, and all 4 of these listed even are online as help for college students, for example, at Oakland University. But not all 4 are inclusive in covering all the areas. So make sure you know what they measure and make sure you don't turn into a counselor, instead reminding ourselves we are facilitators. Another point of research and resources is the ONET Academy. It is indeed a portal. Notice alone, they have multiple sites within the Academy. There's the ONET Online. This is if you're interested in any type of workforce development, human resources, research, counseling, you want to search, you want occupation information. My next move even was helping vets out, and it's for students and job seekers. It has all sorts of informations, and it does have the interest profiler for you to take. And finally, the ONET Code Connector is more for the job coding professionals. Yet another important aspect of building research and resources is keeping up as a CDF professional with the current times. For example, watching TED Talks or YouTube videos with CDF theory interviews. They are just a virtual treasure trove of information. For example, I watched this TED Talk on lie spotting with Pamela Meyer. If you click into it, you can go directly to the YouTube link yourself. Basically, what she's talking about is going from lie spotting to truth seeking to trust building, which is pretty dang important to us as CDF professionals and to being able to understand individuals and overcome barriers. The CDF course covers 12 competencies that are known to be exceptionally important for all career development facilitators. Every single one of these areas, whether it's the helping skills, whether it's the ethics, the assessments, the employability, the promotion and PR, every aspect of this, you have to be a total package and you have to become aware and keep on top of in order to really be a competent career development professional. So it was crucial that each of these elements were covered in my project, which they were, and were covered in the course, which they were. So what's the next step? I'm definitely looking forward to making a difference as a CDF, whether it be with my own business, whether it be on a college campus, working for the government. It doesn't matter. All that matters to me is that I can help people to move forward with their life goals and their wants and their needs. So I'll next be obtaining my Global Career Development Facilitator certification. And thank you so much for watching.